And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to Wednesday Night School. I am John Laspina, the Carnivore teacher, and we have with us Christy from Meeting Wellness. And we should be having a few more people that will be coming in a little bit. Our topic tonight is going to be, of course, carnivore, the proper human diet, but we're also going to add to that, why we eat this way. About nutrition, we're going to discuss all of the nutrients that are found in carnivore, in animal meats, in carnivore products that are lacking in a vegan diet, in a standard American diet. Some of the nutrition's in there, some of it's not very good. There's a lot of anti-nutrients. So we're going to talk about that for the hour. And if you have any questions, type QQQ and type your question, and we'll highlight that, and we'll have our guests see if we can answer your question the best that we can. So while we're waiting, I guess we'll introduce everybody on the screen here. We'll start with all two of us. So Christy, tell us who you are and your channel and all about you.
Yeah, so I always make the joke when I'm on with John that I'm Christy, the other carnivore teacher. I am currently teaching in the classroom. This is my 25th year, mostly teaching 5th grade. So that's why John and I get along so well, because he has that classroom teaching experience in the public schools as well. I'm just super jealous though, because he gets to be retired. Oh man, can't wait for that day. But anyway, but I do love my students and love what I do. But my channel is at Meeting Wellness, and the reason for that channel name is that back in 2023, February of 2023, I wanted to lose a little weight, like a lot of us that come to this space. I think John came into this, way of eating kind of through the same means. It wasn't necessarily looking for any other kind of healing. In fact, I didn't really know I had other healing to do. I wasn't thinking about nutrition whatsoever at that point in my life. It was just about, well, I got about 20 pounds I'd like to shed. And so like so many of us, I yo-yo dieted for my whole life. And I mean, like since my teens, and I'm currently 48. So a long time, well over 30 years of yo-yo dieting, up 20, down, up, down, the same, 10, 20 pounds over and over, more times than I could count, just by restricting calories, maybe some exercise, but mostly just restricting, being hungry, so hungry that I'd feel dizzy. Like I said, not thinking about nutrition at all, right? Just looking at calories on those labels. But the weight would always come back on because you can only be hungry for so long. I think it's Dr. Ben Bickman, that says hunger always wins. And sure enough, yes, it does. And so I would go through these binge phases, put the weight back on and then try to slam it back down just through sheer, force of, of not eating. And so that was super, super unhealthy. But again, in February, I came to learn about keto, and especially through Dr. Barry's channel, meat-based keto. And so I did keto the right way, with mostly meat, and then a few other things like maybe some veggies, maybe some cheese, but mostly meat. And I did lose that 20 pounds. And then I just kind of got sick of cooking that duck food, Rick. I didn't want that duck food anymore. Hi, Rick. I just didn't.
Can you hear me?
It didn't.
Oh yeah, we hear you.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
So those veggies just absolutely just lost their whatever appeal they had. It was like, I think I'll just leave those right off my plate. I didn't know carnivore was a thing. I just kind of started doing it. And then lo and behold, so many things in my life got better. And so, more than just the weight loss. And so, yeah, my channel Meeting Wellness came out of that sort of accidental discovery of the carnivore diet and all the extra benefits I got when I took all the plants, or mostly, I still drink coffee. Okay, that's a plant, but most all the plants, the veggies and stuff out of my diet, led me to have so many more benefits. And so that's how I got started on this.
Great. All right, Rick, we're going around doing the rounds, introducing ourselves and telling us our unique perspective. Your turn.
Well, I think everybody kind of knows who I am. If they don't, then they must be very new to the carnivore community. But I'm the quack. I'm the one that started the carnivore diet out of protest. I was never trying to be healthy. I was okay. I really wouldn't have any problems as a kid, other than being skinny and short. But the carnivore diet was just a way to rebel. It was something that I could do. And when you're kind of hopeless and you really don't want to be, well, you don't want to be in high school. You figured, hey, you can get a heart attack, eat all that meat and all that fat, and eventually you're just going to drop dead. Or at least if you don't drop dead, people will feel sorry for you because you're going to be sick and you won't be able to climb stairs. And, our school had 2 stories and it had no elevator. So that was another thing. But, after you've been on the carnivore diet for a while, your whole outlook on life changes. And before you know it, you don't really want to die of a heart attack. You're just kind of having too much fun. And it's just nice to be rebellious and in a way that doesn't hurt you, because you could be rebellious by driving crazy. You'll probably get killed in an accident. You could smoke cigarettes, but you know what that's going to do. You could take drugs, and that's going to leave you on the side of the road homeless. But eating the carnivore diet, it didn't really have any bad effects. So, and then as time went on, I just made it part of my sort of sustainable lifestyle, the lifestyle of no waste and very deliberate. It's very simple. You don't have to worry about what's for dinner, because you know that it's meat for dinner, it's meat for lunch, and it's meat and eggs for breakfast. So there's just so many things that you don't have to worry about. And then the other thing is it keeps you feeling kind of relaxed more than other people. I know my dad was very much into health foods, but he would have his moods, his up and down. My mom was the same way. My vegan friends to this day, they have their ups and downs. They may be calm one minute and the next minute they're blowing up. You may talk to them one day, they're all happy. The next day they're having a total breakdown. But with me, I'm the one everybody calls when they have a problem, whether it's a mechanical, electrical, or computer or otherwise, or they just want to talk about something in their lives or relationship. They're having a bad moment. So I'm sort of like the free therapist. The only problem is they don't listen to my diet advice. But then again, if they did, maybe they wouldn't talk to me as much. So that's a unique perspective, I would say.
Very interesting. You have the most unique perspective of anybody I know, Rick. They say that Dr. Sean Baker coined the phrase the carnivore diet, but you go way back before him. You started this 40 years ago. So
I never called it the carnivore diet.
He calls it that, but you get the crown for having been carnivore the longest.
I just called it the heart attack diet.
Heart attack diet. That's right. Which people need to understand the origin and why it became that, because it's something to embrace. Honestly, I want to have that heart attack when I hit 120 or 110 or whatever that late age is going to be, and just go like that and not suffer any time before then. And then that's the whole point of it.
That's it.
Yeah,
I agree.
So it's my turn to introduce until more people come in. If they do, I'm John Laspina, carnivore teacher. And like Christy said, I started to lose weight. I did lose weight, and then I noticed all these other amazing benefits that happened to me. My lower back pain disappeared. My AFib kind of went into remission. My skin cleared up. My mood improved. Depression disappeared. And I just never felt better. Optimistic, self-pride and confidence. So many, too numerous to explain other than the weight loss. And I started out keto, then I went ketovore for 3 years. And then the last almost 2 years, I've been a carnivore. Took out coffee, took out avocado, took out the last little bits almost 2 years ago. There's his avocado because he has an avocado. Is that from your avocado tree? All right, good. And so when we talk tonight, our topic is going to be nutrition. And from what I've learned from the doctors and the nutritionists online, which is helping me understand other reasons why being carnivore is so extremely healthy for you, keto carnivore, is because we're receiving all the important essential nutrients. Essential means you must get them from the food you eat, or you will be deprived of that nutrient. And deprivation usually leads to illness or sickness, disease, or potentially death. We must have amino acids. There's about 21 or 22 amino acids that make up a complete protein. We have to get protein. Everybody knows that. We also must have fatty acids. And the ones that we have to get from our foods are omega-6 and omega-3. And we have to have them in a 1-to-1, a 2-to-1, or a 3-to-1 ratio. And a lot of people eating the standard world diet are getting the omega-6s way out of whack. And omega-6s raise inappropriate inflammation in the body and oxidative stress. So you have to have omega-6, but you want to keep them in balance. And you get all of that by eating animal products. You don't have to think, what are my 6s and what are my 3s? You're just getting the proper nutrition. And then we have to have vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins, which are A, D, E, and K, and our water-soluble vitamins, which are vitamin C and all of the B vitamins that have names. And then we need our minerals, and we need sodium, potassium, magnesium, and manganese, and copper, and zinc, and with their micronutrients in very small amounts. So we have protein, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. And knowing this concept of what real nutrition is, you understand that you're getting all of that in a steak, in ground beef. Eggs have all of that. Dairy has a lot of that. So when we talk about beef and lamb and pork and poultry and fish and eggs, cooking in butter and animal fat and beef tallow and bacon fat, we get all those nutrients that we need. What a lot of people are not doing when they eat the standard American diet or the standard European diet or wherever they live is they're not thinking about the nutrition. They look at the food and say, "Oh, that looks delicious to me. I'm going to eat it to make me feel good, to make me feel happy," almost like a drug. A lot of people eat like taking a drug to make themselves feel good. It tastes good. That's why I want it. Some people do look at calories, and some people look at the fat content because we have been taught to be fat phobic for so many years. But people are not really reading the ingredient labels and the nutritional labels. And if you eat right, there are no ingredient labels. It's one ingredient, and you're getting all of your essential nutrition from animal products. So that's the main topic, my little beginning speech there. And let's see what all of you have to say about that. What are your thoughts on getting nutrition from animal products, Christy?
So I'll just jump in with a couple of things. John just did a fantastic overview. A couple of things that he said, sparked some thoughts. One of the things that he just talked about was those nutrition labels. So a lot of the foods that do have labels, you're going to see a bunch of vitamins. And guess where those came from? Oh, yeah, a factory somewhere. So they're not, they're things that they just kind of added in to fortify the food. And they're not bioavailable, and who knows about the amounts. And I just recently watched some videos talking about some of those things are even like over fortified because they want to say that it's fortified, and it may even be excessive. And so it's just kind of, we call it sometimes frankenfood. It's not something that is a whole food that you want to be putting into your body. And I'm sure you guys have more things to add. Another thing I thought of was vitamin C. Good old vitamin C. Why don't all of us carnivores have scurvy? Hi, Nia. Do you have scurvy? She's like, what? No, see, Nia doesn't have scurvy.
Okay, I thought I was muted. No, I don't have scurvy.
Yeah.
Hello.
No, she doesn't.
Sorry, I'm late.
And so what? Yeah. I mean,
that was a nice welcome.
That was a nice welcome because I was in the middle of my little speech and then Nia popped in. So, hey, Nia. And the reason that we carnivores do not get scurvy is because the thing about that receptor for that vitamin C is that it's the same receptor as glucose. So when you're eating a diet that is rich in carbohydrates, those carbohydrates will outcompete the vitamin C. And so the RDA for vitamin C was made because you have to have enough vitamin C to sort of like get any through into those receptors. But once you take all the carbohydrates and glucose out, your body makes the very minimal amount of glucose that you're going to need. But then the vitamin C that is in the meat, and meat does contain vitamin C, it is not zero. There is a little bit in there, and that it is enough. And I've yet to meet a carnivore who has developed scurvy. So vitamin C is another big one that we hear about. How about you, Rick? I'm going to throw it down to you.
Well, as long as I have good quality beef or I'd say locally sourced duck or iguana, then I'm doing just fine. I don't have any problem with that. Now, occasionally, like now when I don't have the money and the beef is too expensive, I have to eat more chicken and pork, which isn't as good of a meat. But if I eat too much of that, then I'll notice that my performance starts to decrease. So I do have to add some plant material, And this is my secret weapon right here. You probably know what this is. These are either sauerkraut or fermented banana flowers. This stuff's been in here for about 3 weeks. It sits on my countertop, requires no refrigeration. So what I'll do if I have to eat a lot of that commercially raised pork or chicken, I'll just eat some of that with every meal. I try to get at least a little bit of beef every day. So I'll try to get at least a pound of beef every day. And I don't salt the beef, I don't spice it. I just cook it. I'll either grill it or I'll boil it or I'll roast it, whatever I need to do. If I do boil it, then what I do, I save the water and I actually filter it out through a screen. I put it in the refrigerator and that gives me the beef fat that I can use for cooking my eggs in the morning. I know a lot of people use butter to cook eggs, and I used to do that myself. But the problem with butter is that it's temperature sensitive. And a lot of times when I'm using my cast iron cookware, because that's pretty much all I use for frying, although I do use stainless steel for boiling and sometimes for deep frying. But I found that when you use butter, it gets hot really quickly and you're not able to make your scrambled eggs or your, sunny side up or whatever way you want to cook the eggs. So what I do, I use the leftover fat from the beef for when I'm boiling it or even roasting it. If I roast it, sometimes you get the fat that runs off and I'll put that in some water and I'll run it through a screen and I'll do the same thing. I put it in the refrigerator and what happens, it floats to the top and you get this nice little white, hard, fatty layer. And then you can take that. I have a little tray that I keep it in, and there's always plenty of it to keep my eggs cooked. And when it comes to other frying, I mean, again, if I can hit the dumpster over there at the Presidente supermarket or at the Aldi, I can get the fat that they trim off, and then I'll take that and make beef tallow in the crock pot. Although my old crock pot broke, but I have another one, and I'll render the beef tallow that way. Or I'll just have to get some pork fat and then make lard out of it. But either way, that's all I use. I never use vegetable oils except for when I need to make paint. When I made paint for my payphone, that's what I used. And I actually used some charcoal residue and some asphalt, and I made a paint which came out better than I thought it would. The phone was sticky for a couple days, but now it looks good, and I even rebuilt it. I got it working again. But when it comes to whatever I'm going to eat, again, if I'm really, really desperate, then I'll have to resort to eating fruit. But the problem is there's certain fruits that I can't eat without throwing up, and this is one of them. If I try to eat an avocado, I will throw up. This stuff is just, I don't know what's in it, but it really makes me sick, which is ironic because I have 2 avocado trees here, and I have 20 trees at my lot that I planted from a seed. And, this is one of my seed-grown trees from here. So I got a friend that loves avocados. So what I'll do, this one's nice and soft and ready to eat. I'll give it to him and then I'll ask him what it tastes like. Because if I taste it, it's just going to taste like crap. Because to me, all avocados taste like crap. I think of them as duck food. And my vegan friends often tell me, well, Rick, why do you grow tropical fruits and vegetables? I said, well, first of all, I like having plants around me. Second of all, they're a great thing that I can give to my friends. I'll give you an example right here. One of my banana trees fell over, so we got some bananas right here. I've already given away some of them, but these are nice little bananas. They're the ones everybody likes with the thin skin. They are very flavorful if you like bananas. Now, again, I hate bananas. I can't eat a ripe banana. I always used to eat them when they were kind of green. So if I'm going to eat a banana, what I'll do, I'll cut the skin off of it because you can't peel it when they're that green. And you get all that sap on your hands. And then I cut it into fries, and I'll fry it up in beef tallow and make heart attack fries. That's the only way I can eat a banana. And that's a rare occasion. But a lot of times what I'll do when I have friends over for barbecue or whatever and they want fries, I'll make them fries. I also make them popcorn, but generally I will use popcorn that I grew myself. I do that seasonally. And then we'll get some lard. I normally make the popcorn in lard. And of course, we use real butter. We don't use that artificial vegetable oil crap. We don't use the MSG salt either. I use salt that I make myself. Most of the salt that I make, I get from the groundwater down in the Keys. And then I put that out in the sun and I let it dry out. And that's how I make my salt. So, I'm a poor man. I can't afford Redmond's real salt or Himalayan salt or any of this other crazy stuff. But I can get it from down here with no problem. And it's the same thing with these fruits and vegetables. I will never buy a fruit or vegetable in the store. And I know people that go to Publix and buy these things all the time, but I won't do it. But if I grow it myself, I will gladly give it away. And it's like I told a friend of mine, hey, even though I'm a carnivore, I wouldn't mind having a farm where I raised tropical fruits and vegetables and sold fruit trees, because I don't have a problem with people eating fruit. But for my own nutrition, having beef is the best. Seafood is also something that I like to eat. And of course, reptile meat when I can get it, and duck when I can get them. And I'm happy with that. But if all the people around me want to eat something other than meat, that's what the fruits and vegetables are for. And if you can handle them, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. More veggies for you, more meat for me.
All right, thanks, Rick. Nia, we're talking about nutrition, protein, fat, vitamins, minerals that we are getting in the carnivore diet that people on the standard American diet don't think about what they're getting. They look at calories, they're looking at sometimes the ingredients and fat, but this talk today is about all of the nutrition that is required essentially for us to actually be alive and healthy that we get from the carnivore diet. What are your thoughts on that?
Great topic. I have lots of thoughts, and
right.
the first one about the whole calorie thing, because I subscribed to that back in the day, when I was kind of first dieting and things like that. I'm sure we all have, and it takes it when I finally realized, like, we don't run on calories. Like, calories, it's just a name of a unit of heat that, like, can be burned, and we don't burn calories. Like, every metaphor, every sort of associative phrase that goes along with calories just isn't accurate in depicting what our body actually does, how we actually digest and absorb nutrition. That was kind of a game changer for me. And so that really helped me to think more in terms of nutrients, or, like, what exactly am I consuming and how does my body absorb and assimilate and use that nutrition. And so I think that's probably the first thing, that if people can break out of thinking about calories as the only metric for grading their diet, that's huge. And then from there, really the next most important thing to me is bioavailability, and just understanding the idea that many of the things we're told are in plants are either all precursors, which are not the effective form of the vitamin or mineral that they're purporting is in that plant, or it's bound up in some sort of anti-nutrient form that blocks its absorption or irritates our digestive system or our nervous system or something like that. And so I feel like those are, between calories being the main measure of how you judge what you're taking in, and in general, like, I know some people track macros and stuff in the Western sort of mainstream diet, but thinking that that's the best way to lose weight and all that stuff, I think is just a fallacy. But the whole idea that, for instance, there's vitamin A in carrots is a whole, you'll see that in a headline and people will read that and go, oh, okay, I just need to eat more carrots, and I'll get all my vitamin A. I don't need to eat animal foods. And there's so many, if you actually look into what, beta carotene is what is in a carrot, not vitamin A. It's a precursor to vitamin A that can be converted, but the key word is can, and we don't know what the conversion rate is. We don't know if it's the same for everybody. It seems to be variable depending on your genetics and many other factors. And so if you eat a whole bag of carrots, you really don't know how much vitamin A your body is actually able to take from that beta carotene that came in and turn into the vitamin that you actually need. You have to be eating fat with that in order to have any hope of absorbing it as well, because vitamin A is a fat soluble vitamin. And so, I think that's what gets a lot of people hung up in, again, the mainstream of nutrition, is that you see all this stuff about these nutrients that exist in plants. And while that, it may be true to some degree, we don't know how much at the end of the day we're actually able to absorb and turn into what we actually need to build our bodies. And so right as I was becoming carnivore the first time, that concept, something came up in my feed. It was probably a Bart K video or something about that, where it's like, plants defend themselves. And that concept had never really occurred to me. It's like, oh yeah, animals defend themselves, but plants can't get up and run away. They can't claw at you. Some of them have thorns and things like that to deter predators. But really, how else are they going to defend themselves except for use toxins, use chemicals, right? Use their chemistry to deter animals, insects, anything from eating them. And so it makes sense to think that whenever you ingest a plant food, yeah, you may be getting some minerals or some precursors to some vitamins, or even potentially some actually whole vitamins that your body needs without having to convert them. What else is it coming with? It's coming in a package with a bunch of other stuff that may inhibit the absorption of that specific nutrient, or cause havoc in the digestive system, the nervous system, the respiratory system, something else. So you're going to get inflammation from that. And so to me, those are the two biggest reasons why I think carnivore makes sense. And again, I'm not against people incorporating or using some plants if they tolerate them and they don't seem to bother you. But this whole idea that we need to move away from meat and we can just eat the rainbow and just eat tons and tons of grains and eat this huge variety of, make sure we have this giant variety of all these plants, and that's going to be better for the planet, better for our bodies, better for all these things. It's just, when you actually look into it, it's complete BS. And so, I've never felt better on a 100% carnivorous diet. And I recently dropped the last plant that I was holding on to, which was coffee. And, I doubt that I will ever reintroduce that. I mean, never say never, but I feel so much better now. I think my brain operates better without it in general. And so, yeah, those are kind of my main thoughts.
All right. I appreciate you sharing all of that. You basically touched on the part of the topic I was going to go into next, which is the anti-nutrients in the plants, because we're talking about nutrition and all of the nutrients in animal meats. So we'll get to that also. I wanted to say something about Rick. Rick, you gave me a wonderful idea just now. I think one of my next Wednesday night schools is going to be called Show and Tell. And we're all going to bring one or two things to hold up and show. That's like our favorite thing, because I love that you do that. He brings things, and just, I'm a teacher. We're visual. We're more visual than auditory learners. And when you see something and you could talk about it and say why it's important to you, let's do that. Maybe we'll do that next week. A question came up from Aid. It was it was rhetorical, but I'm going to read it in regards to a balanced diet. Why do I need a balanced diet when I get everything I need in the right form on a carnivore diet? And she meant that rhetorically. And people talk about eating the rainbow. Okay, Christy mentioned that. And there's the incorrect food pyramid. There's the my plate thing. Everyone talks about having a balance, and that phrase, eat everything in moderation. All the things that we heard all of our lives, there's no spine behind it, because we're not talking about protein, fat, vitamins, and minerals. Okay, they're including some of the things that Nia talked about, and that's a lot of the anti-nutrients that are in plants. One of the ones that's really big, I read a whole book about it, and I had a kidney stone from it. I had an eye oxalate dumping symptom from it, and that's oxalate. And these are in a lot of nuts and seeds and a lot of plants like spinach and rhubarb and cinnamon and chia seeds and dark chocolate. And these are, our body can handle about 150 milligrams a day. Our body makes a small amount as an endpoint, but we can dump without any problems about 150 milligrams a day. But the amount of oxalates that are in some chocolate, that's in like a third cup of spinach, is like 800 milligrams, and that's just in one day. And that's just an oxalate. There's also phytic acid. There are lectins. There's saponins. There's what are the inhibitors? There's something that it inhibits the digestion. There is something that mimics estrogen. There's a lot of phytoestrogens in plants, and your body thinks it's an estrogens, plural, and it unbalances our hormone system. Men, it unbalances our testosterone. Women, it messes up the hormone system with progesterone and also. And there's another list. There's just a list of anti-nutrients. And yes, some people have a good bandwidth and they can tolerate some of these things. And so they say, well, these plants have never hurt me in my life and they don't hurt me now. You say that now, but a lot of people don't realize that as we age, our bandwidth gets shorter. And what didn't bother us in our youth because we were strong and virile is starting to bother us in our older age. And we don't know what it is. And it's usually the anti-nutrients in plants. The fiber in plants also, absorb and block the calcium and the nutrition. So when we talk about getting nutrition from animal products, there are no anti-nutrients really in animal products. The finest animal products are the ones that are the cleanest, like grass-fed and grass-finished, which is very hard to get and very hard to find unless you have a regenerative ranch nearby that you can buy from or raise on your own. So we know that ruminant meat has a very good content because of the rumen. There's 4 chambers in a ruminant animal, and it filters out a lot of the toxins. A lot of the omega-6s are not as high in ruminant meat as it is in pork and poultry because of the animal's stomach chambers. And when we talk about eggs, we want pasture raised because we know that when they're eating the bugs and the worms on the ground and they're not being fed the genetically modified chicken feed, the corn and the grain, that the yolk has more choline, it has more omega-3 fatty acids in there. And, wild caught fish is so much better than the fish where they feed basically poop pellets and grain pellets to the fish. And it's, if you've ever looked at farm raised salmon versus wild caught sockeye salmon, there's a huge difference in the color and the fat and everything and the taste. So nutrition is something that we focus on in the carnivore community because we know we're getting optimal nutrition. Rick mentioned something, how when he starts to feel maybe a little off because he's had more pork and poultry and he does something to help his body, he understands that he feels best on beef because beef is king. It's a ruminant. It's a higher content in all of the nutrition that we need. So I don't know if anybody wants to talk on that topic with the question I have here about a balanced diet. I think a balanced diet is protein, fat, vitamins, and minerals.
So I find all those phrases like the balanced diet and eat everything in moderation, those are like platitudes. What do they even mean? Like they give you no specifics. What they give you is permission to eat whatever you want because you're just going to have a few bites of this or that. And it kind of lets you keep that. Those of us that have had a carbohydrate addiction or a sugar addiction, it just kind of allows you to sort of keep that going. It's really not specific. And I don't even know if people that, talk about those things even know what they mean when they say those things, not specifically. To touch on a few of the things that you talked about, one of the things I was thinking about, John, was the plant sterols. So our body needs cholesterol. Okay, our brain is made of a ton of cholesterol. Cholesterol is used to make every cell membrane in our body. It's super important. But when we're eating a lot of plants, the plants do not contain cholesterol. They contain plant sterols. That's why when we eat a lot of them, our cholesterol will go down because it's being taken up. That space that should be cholesterol is being taken by the plant sterols. And I think that I am not a plant and I would like to be made of cholesterol and not plant sterols. So that was one thing when you were talking about that I was thinking of. And the other thing is with oxalates. Yes, they build up. So I didn't have the dumping, like the kidney stone and the eye dumping. I've heard of people that have had that. But yeah, after going carnivore, I had a few bouts of like an itchy chest. Like I get this red rash on my chest and it would itch for a few days and it would kind of go away. And that maybe happened 4 or 5 times since going carnivore. But you think they're not bothering you because your body just kind of socks them away and just stores them up in places. And they're like little crystally things. And, eventually if you build up too many of them, yeah, you might get a kidney stone. You might feel it in your joints as arthritis and things like that. And when you stop eating them, your body's like, aha, now's my big chance. And it dumps them out. So you may not be feeling symptoms of those oxalates now, but yeah, I cringe now when I think of the amount of spinach I ate, because I knew nothing about oxalates until I got into carnivore and started watching all the carnivore videos and going, oh wow, like I sure ate a lot of spinach back in the day. The other thing that I wanted to talk about that you made me think about, John, when you were talking was, just think about a number of species of plants on the earth. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's got to be millions and millions of plants, and we can eat about 150 of them. And it doesn't mean it's optimal, but like we could eat them. Most plants, if you go out there and try to eat them, they're going to kill you. You're not just going to go pull some random leaves off a bush and make a salad out of it. Like, you're going to get sick. Nobody does that. It's only the plants that, by the way, humans have done a lot of tailoring to that plant DNA to make the plants bigger and like have enough that we can even plant them and get a harvest out of them that is even worth doing anything for our body. So all that stuff was not there. All those plants like corn and that kind of stuff didn't exist in its form that it is now. Humans did that and made that happen. So that makes me wonder, like, we kind of monkeyed around with that stuff. Like, how good can it really be for us? It's not a food that's really found in nature. But if you think about the animal species, we can eat most of them, right? There's only a couple that might be, poisonous or something, that we can't eat, but most meat is very safe for us to eat. So that gives me a big clue right there as to the things that I want to be eating in terms of getting my nutrition. So that's my 2 cents on that.
All right, Rick.
What's in
Show and tell, Rick.
What do you think is in this jar?
Is it for food?
No, it's actually fuel.
Oh, is it really?
This is diesel. This is some of the
Okay.
diesel that I make from plastic. Now, this has calories.
Right.
There's more than 4,000 calories in this jar. So I tell people, they say, well, a calorie is a calorie. It doesn't matter if it comes from a Coca-Cola or for a steak or whatever. And I actually made a short video on this. What I did, this is 2 pounds of beef that's in the freezer. And I cooked that up. And here is diesel. Now, which one of these two is acceptable to eat? Well, obviously, anyone could eat this. You drink this, and you're going to be in big trouble. You're going to be throwing up, or you're going to be in the hospital getting your stomach pumped. So this means that a calorie is not a calorie. The other thing I wanted to show you for show and tell, for those of you that live in northern climates, you may not know what bananas look like when they're hanging on the plant. This is just part of it. This bunch goes up and up and up. And these are not the kind you find in the store because those are all Cavendish based. But you'll notice these bananas are never eaten by any animal or insect when they're green. As soon as they turn ripe, the birds, the rodents, and the insects start to eat them. Now, why is that? Why don't animals eat these fruits when they're green? You can see the same thing with citrus, and you can see the same thing with pretty much any fruit. When the fruit is green, nothing touches it. And why is that? Well, because the plant protects its fruit with chemistry. And as Christy was saying, you go out there and eat random leaves, and you see what happens to you. It's not going to be a good outcome. You're going to get sick. I guarantee it. Even if you eat grass, which, by the way, is not technically toxic, but try eating some grass. Go out in your yard, get some St. Augustine, if you live in Florida, or bluegrass or whatever you have, and eat some of it and see what it tastes like. Well, first of all, it's going to taste really bad. It's going to be bitter, and you're going to spit it out. I mean, if you could swallow it, that's great. Then you're going to have a bunch of fiber in your mouth that you're going to have to spit out because you'll choke on it. And what are you going to get out of it? Absolutely nothing. And yet, people think that eating leaves is healthy. But I've always thought leaves are not edible. Stems, leaves, seeds, and roots are parts of the plant that do not want to be eaten. In order to eat those parts, you have to prepare them. It's like here in Florida, there's a native cycad called the Kunti, and the Seminoles and the Miccosukees, they were eating it. But in order to eat it, they had to mash it, wash it, and ferment it. And basically, with most roots or any other plant parts, they have toxins. Look at potatoes. When potatoes are sprouting, they're extremely toxic. They have they're nightshades, so they will kill you. You can get very sick eating raw potatoes.
Yep.
Potatoes have to be cooked. Beans will kill you because
Yes.
they're seeds. People don't understand. It only takes, what, 5 or 6 red beans to kill you if they're raw. They have to be soaked and they have to be cooked. You have those plant proteins, the lectins. And as mentioned, you have those phytosterols. And then you have the oxalates. And then you have alkaloids. And there's just so many chemicals in these plants. And the thing is, if they didn't have those toxins in them, they would be eaten by animals and they would go extinct. If the plants couldn't protect their leaves, their stems, their roots, and their seeds, they would all be gone. But the fruit that they want you to eat, you have to wait until it's ripe. And if you go to the store and you buy one of these avocados, do you think this is picked ripe? No. Because look, it's mushy now. It fell off the tree. How long is it going to be good for? A couple of days? And then it rots. So they have to be picked when they're green. And then they have to be transported long distances. Do you think that a fruit that was picked green is as safe to eat as one that ripened on the tree? Of course not. So even if you're eating natural foods, they're going to be chemically sprayed. They're going to have chemical fertilizers. And then also, people have gotten very sick from salads. There's been, hepatitis, and there's other diseases that are spread because you get waste in the field. Maybe somebody didn't wash their hands. The bacteria grow on the plants. So they might think that plants are safe, but even if the plant itself is not toxic, just transporting it, or like you said with the potatoes, if they start to sprout, they can become toxic. It's like Russian roulette when you're eating plants. If you don't know which plants you can eat and you make a mistake, you may get a second chance, but usually you don't. You'll get so sick, that's it. But if you kill an animal, the only animals that are toxic are the ones that, like, for example, like a rattlesnake, they have their glands that are toxic, but the meat is safe to eat. The only thing would be like puffer fish, where most of their meat is toxic because what do they eat? They eat toxic algae, plants. And there's a couple of other animals that, and some carry parasites and stuff like that. But generally, any animal that is alive is edible to us. So as mentioned, doesn't that kind of say something? If you're going to play Russian roulette with the plants, okay, you got to survive, you got to eat what you got to. But then again, if you're smart, you'll learn how to ferment your plants so that if you do have to eat them, you'll know whether or not they're safe, because if they're totally toxic, the bacteria won't touch them. And a lot of times that's what a cow does. A cow has the multi-chambered stomach, and they use alkaline conditions, and cows have to lick salt because they need salt to make the process work. And then once the food has been circulated around those stomachs, then it goes to their last stomach, which is acid like ours, and then they can break down, because what they're doing, they're taking plant material and they're turning it into fats, and they're pretty much living on fat. So even if you're a cow, you can't eat the plants directly. Insects, for example, that eat plants, they cultivate certain bacteria, like termites. They have certain bacteria, otherwise they can't digest the food. Caterpillars, they have certain bacteria, and they adapt to the toxins of the plant. And one insect can only eat certain plants. They can only eat plants in a certain family, but not every plant. There is no insect that can eat every single plant on Earth. And again, that should tell us something. So as you mentioned, we can eat pretty much any meat on Earth. Why would we take our chances with lower quality foods like plants? When the meat is available, let's eat it. If we don't have it, then we have to settle for the plants. That's how I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with what you all said. And just to kind of throw a cherry on top, a balanced diet is just another one of those phrases that means, like, we don't really know for sure what exactly you need and how much, because there's so many variables and it depends on all these different things. So, just CYA by eating a balanced, super varied diet, right? But when you think about that from a common sense perspective, how many human beings had access throughout history to a multivariate diet at a grocery store where, they could choose from all these different things that were out of season and flown in from countries all around the world? Like, how would any of us be here then? How would any of us been able to reproduce successfully and survive if we couldn't eat, kale, Brussels sprouts, garlic, spinach, everything, squash, all different colored squash, all the different bell peppers, onions, like, it doesn't make any sense. And so it's one of those sort of nonsense terms that irritates me to the bone sometimes. I'm like, does anyone think about this before they say it? And I believe in balance under the frame of like, like you can have balance within a proper human diet. You can be carnivore for a while, and then maybe you add a few things in seasonally, and then you go back to carnivore in the winter or whatever. Like there's balance that can be found within everything. But I think the boundary that is basically eliminated then when we talk about a balanced diet in the standard sense, because it's basically like, we'll eat whatever you want, anything, as long as it's in moderation and in balance with everything else. So those are my thoughts.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I appreciate that. Christy, what do you think? You think Rick should have an honorary teaching degree? The guy's amazing. He's
I agree. Let's give him one of those.
Am I right?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a natural teacher. I'm glued when he talks. He's fascinating.
Mhm.
So a question, I invited Aid Larson, I think I'm saying her name correctly, correctly, to come on live next week because the person always has a lot of great stuff to offer. Question is nutritionists emphasize vitamin K1 from greens and ignore K2. Carnivore gives us K2, but not K1. Do carnivores need it? So here's my knowledge of that topic. It's not very deep, and maybe you guys have a lot to offer to add on to that knowledge. Vitamin K is a fat soluble vitamin. So when we are getting it, it absorbs into our body when we're taking it in with fat. K1 is found in plants, and K1 is important because it helps our blood in the coagulation process. When we have repairs that need to be done inside of our body, or if we get cut, it helps in coagulation. K2 is found abundantly in animal products, and K2 does a little bit of blood coagulation, but its main purpose, one of the main purposes, is it gets the calcium, it directs it into our bones and away from our arteries, where we could have coronary calcium developing. Vitamin K does many other things too, but those are the two jobs. When we eat K1 from plants only, like when vegans eat K1, a human body can convert that into K2, but it does it very inefficiently. And many human beings have trouble doing it, or they don't do it at all. And so a lot of vegans have to take supplements. They have to take K2 supplements because they're not getting enough. Now, the question that this person said was that, do we need, as carnivores, do we need K1? Because if we're not eating any plants at all and we're getting our K2, what about the K1? And from the research that I found, and maybe you all can share a little bit on this, is that we're getting a little bit of K1 as well because the animals are eating the plants. So it does show up in some of the animal meat. Now, I don't know if the quantity is appropriate, but we are getting K1. We are definitely getting K2 when we're carnivore. Anybody have any insight on this? Anybody can jump in.
Yeah, I think you covered pretty much everything that I knew about it. I know that there's some K1 in liver. So if people are doing liver, you might get some K1. And I think there's a few like seafood type of things, which I don't eat personally because I just don't like them. I wish I did for those omega-3s, but anyway, but I do think there's some K1 in there. All I can tell you from my personal experience is anytime I've needed my blood to clot, it's been clotting just fine. So, I've never heard a carnivore complain about that or, talk about the K1 could be a problem. Personally, but John covered it really well. That pretty much summarized my knowledge as well, John. So thank you.
Yeah, I get cut all the time. I mean, I work outside, I work with my hands, and I've never had a problem with clots. In fact, I sliced my arm open on a light fixture and I put it back together with some tape. It was a pretty deep cut. It had no issues. And I mean, I don't know. I have no idea, but I was told a long time ago that shrimp and fish does have the K1 in it, and I do eat that kind of on a regular basis. Also, I like to eat liver. So I haven't had it in a while because it's been expensive, but there were times when I was eating a pound of liver a week. So, it's probably that's what it is. I really don't know research wise if that's true, but I know in my own personal experience, I've never had an issue.
Okay, this is an answer that I love to get. I get it from many people, and I hear it from many people, is whether you have the studies to prove it or show it, so many people are living, he's getting cut, it's coagulating. They're N equal 1 experiment for themselves. And so they are proof that carnivore is supplying all of the needed nutrients, even the vitamins that some of the vegans accuse us of not getting. So apparently we're getting K1 in some of the foods. Any thoughts on that, Nia?
Yeah, I think mostly what you guys covered, and I think conceptually here again, if you compare this sort of like to the B12 argument on the opposite side, where we say, okay, well, vegans are not getting any B12 in their diet, right? They have to supplement. And so, on the flip side, you could say, well, we're not getting any K1, so really we have to supplement, right? Because I'm not sure if it's really in any animal foods to any significant degree. At least when I was tracking food and stuff a while back on Carnviore, I don't remember if I looked at K1 versus K2, but I guess, again, conceptually, it would be like, okay, well, if we see that people that go on a vegan diet, for example, who are not consuming any B12, they have symptoms of vitamin B12 deficiency. And so they have to take a supplement in order to remedy those symptoms. And like you've been pointing out here, we have many examples now of long-term carnivores, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and more in some cases. And so if there was some sort of, if these people were bleeding out at every time they got a nick or a cut on something, I think they either wouldn't be here, right? Or we would know about that if people were bruising easily and struggling with blood clotting. So there again, same thing kind of with vitamin C, it's like, okay, well, there's not objectively tons of vitamin C in all kinds of meat products, right? But people just aren't getting scurvy and dying of scurvy. And so there must be some other mechanism that our body knows how to use in the context of the diet that we're eating, right? We're not eating processed food. We're not eating seed oils. We're not eating all this high inflammatory BS, right? That is going to disrupt the way our body's naturally supposed to work, right? So take out all the garbage, give it the proper fuel, like we started out talking about, the basic proteins, the building blocks, the amino acids, the fats that we need to digest and absorb a lot of these minerals and other vitamins that are in the fat sources themselves and the protein. And those are the basic raw materials that we need to build and maintain our human structure. And we don't need any exogenous carbohydrate sources because we can make our own glucose, and we can. So obviously, if we're not having symptoms of this stuff, then there is a mechanism that exists that maybe we just don't understand fully yet, that allows us to get K1 or that prevents us from having, the symptom or the clotting issue via some other means, whether it's K2 or whatever else it might be. So not a biochemist here either, but that's my thought on that.
Excellent. I appreciate it. Everybody has a different perspective. One last question before we sign off tonight. This is from Looking on the Bright Side. Let me put that up there. Okay. Is the carnivore diet healthy for women going through perimenopause? Do you suggest any specific supplementation besides meat during perimenopause? What are your thoughts? Anybody on the screen here? Help.
Okay, I'll jump in as the
Thank
woman
you.
probably going through perimenopause on the screen here. Nia, okay. You're too young, and you other two men don't do that. So,
okay.
So I'm going to caveat this by saying I'm not a medical professional, nor do I yet have any symptoms. I'm 48 years old. I'll be 49 next month. But so I don't yet have any symptoms of this. I can only tell you what I've heard, which is you need to go with the high fat. So if you're looking to keep your hormones in check, eat some butter, eat some beef tallow, eat some pork fat, keep it high on the fat. And I've heard lots of stories on, I also do I have another channel, Lioness Lifestyle Live, where we interview women, specifically women, and talk about women's health with the carnivore diet or with meat-based eating. And I've heard so many stories from women who have, like just the guest we just had on Tuesday, talking about getting their hormones back in balance by using kind of a high-fat approach. So I don't know about any supplementation because I haven't had any symptoms. So I haven't looked into further supplementation, but high fat I know is very good for hormones.
All right. Thank you. I would not have known how to answer that question. So I appreciate that. Any last thoughts before we go around and talk about our channels? Anybody?
I always have thoughts. I'll just throw a few more in here for everybody.
Throw them out.
You're welcome. I just think that, again, we're all an experiment. And so I think when people are first exposed to this idea and are thinking, oh my gosh, how can you not eat any plants? How are you going to have a balanced diet? How are you going to get everything you need? It's just part of this mental framework that we've been taught. And so just because we've been taught that our whole lives doesn't mean that it's true. And we all know this, right? But it's just kind of the unburdening of all of that and being willing to be an experiment and to try things out if you're not feeling well and see what happens, and I think that's what we're all examples of. Again, none of us are doctors. None of us are here saying we know the answer to everything, but we're just sharing our experiences because all of our lives have been changed. I think all of our lives have been changed dramatically for the positive by changing our diet. And so I feel like that's hard to argue with. It's like if you feel great, your health is improving, you're aging backwards, your mental health is better, all these things are starting to stack up. It's like I worry much less about how much K1 am I getting or how much vitamin C or how much whatever I'm getting. It's like clearly my body knows what it's doing, and I trust that going forward.
Nia, were you? Oh, sorry. She has a little one over there. I was going to ask you, did you worry about all that stuff when you were eating the SAD diet or the Standard World diet? Did you worry when you were eating your pizza how much vitamin C was in there?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, me neither.
No.
We're very conscious of what we're getting now because we're enlightened, where we know what the nutrition is. Before, we weren't thinking so much about it. And yet we were worried about things we shouldn't have been worried about, like cholesterol and, saturated fat for my heart and all the things that they taught us that were incorrect. So we're worrying about the right stuff now. And what's so great about carnivore is every time I hear a question, the thousands and thousands of questions that Dr. Ken Berry gets on his channel and Dr. Anthony Chafee entertains on his 2 and 3 hour shows on his channel. I love listening to all these questions. They're all so unique and they all come down to the same thing. The carnivore diet is the solution to a lot of people's ailments, issues, problems. It's the way to get the best possible health because it's our species-specific diet. All the answers come back to carnivore. And some people, can benefit from doctors and some medicine temporarily, but this is the way to go. And this is why we have our channels. Am I right? Tell us where we can find you, Christy.
Okay, so my main channel is at Meeting Wellness, and I have some cool stuff coming up. I'm going to be interviewing a small, they're like a regenerative farm called Air to Ground Farms. They have a channel and they eat like a keto-based diet. So they eat a lot of meat that they raise themselves, and any vegetables that they eat, they grow themselves. And so I can hardly wait to talk to them. So I have a lot of cool stuff coming up in the rest of this month. And the other thing I do that I sometimes forget to mention is Lioness Lifestyle Live. We've recently broken that show off of our channels and given it its own space. So if you're interested, this coming Tuesday, we do have Dr. Chafee talking about Dr. Chafee over there, John.
Great.
I personally have found that when I jump on the smaller channels when they're interviewing a doctor, like my question almost always gets answered, because you're not looking at a chat with hundreds and hundreds of people in there. So if you have a question for Dr. Chafee, come on over this Tuesday. We air at 5 p.m. Pacific. And might I say that the next 2 Tuesdays, we also have Dr. Boz right after him, and we have
Wow.
Dr. Kiltz right after her. So we have a triple threat coming up on Linus Lifestyle Live. If you're not yet subscribed over there and you have a question for one of those 3 doctors, or you just want to get in on some of that wisdom from them, come on over. Like I said, Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Pacific,
That's 5 p.m. your time. Is
Eastern.
that correct?
Yeah, Pacific. Yeah, or 8 p.m. Eastern. And of course, the replays are always available too if you miss it. But we love to have you there live and interacting in our chat and roaring with us over there. So that's where you can find me.
Great.
Well, you probably see me get up and go one place to the other because I want to make sure my food didn't burn. I do like many different things at once. When you live by yourself, you got to handle everything. And my channel is basically run on the same concept. I've been on YouTube for 17 years. I've never made a penny from it. So it's just a hobby. So I just upload quick videos of ideas or things that I'm doing, just so that people can see that I'm still alive and haven't had my heart attack yet. And when I do have my heart attack, hopefully I won't be able to upload a video because I'll be dead. So, that's kind of the way it is. But my channel is Charger Mopar because I actually started this channel because I love antique cars and I'm a really good mechanic. And, I drive around in my 69 Charger. It's always fun. But on the other hand, look, what made it popular was the carnivore diet. When I admitted 2 years ago that I'm a carnivore, and everyone's like, wow, he hasn't died yet. So now it's just a countdown. Everybody can, they see me take my blood pressure and they see it's like 100 over 60 something or 90 over 60 or whatever. And they're just counting down the days until I have the big one. But that's really it. So Charger Mopar on YouTube, if you like a little bit of, I guess, a comedy or a little bit of quackness to your channel, then hit mine. You might see me catch and cook an iguana while you're at it.
Thank you.
I am Nia, and my main channel is at Nia's Way on YouTube, and I talk about carnivore and put out shopping videos and vlogs and things that I think about, and do live streams as well. And I have a podcast channel at Nia M Nova where I would love to share anybody's story who would like to be on, just to share your healing story, carnivore story. You can email me at niasway@gmail.com. Want to be on that. And yeah, thanks for having me. This is always a good time.
Great. I want to thank everybody for coming. Next week's topic is definitely going to be show and tell. And I'll email you guys. Bring 1 or 2 things, and we'll talk about them and why they're important to us in our carnivore journey of excellent health. Everybody have a great night. And I hope to see you again next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Take care.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.